The Mystery of BELICENA VILLCA. Fourth Book. Quest for Uncle Kurt. Chapter 30. The storm subsided at night, and in the morning the sky was clear, without traces of the storm. Even the wind had ceased completely, and the VILLCA was serene. A total silence reigned now in the tiny valley. The warm rays of January, the sun, barely reached to melt a part of the accrued snow. But, more radiant than the sun was me, even though I didn't sleep the entire night, I was sure to have the solution to direct the XXX behind the steps of Ernst Schaefer, and that achievement encouraged and overdriven me. When von Grossen saw me, he didn't need to ask to know that the problem was solved. He was dedicated, instead, to send a Loper to relieve the Gurkha, and notify him the ubication of our campsite. Then he was concentrated to study the deficient maps of the Tibet, and the west of China. I spent the morning talking with Esker, and the other officers SS, and at noon we lunched zampa, a saucepan cooked by 3 monks, forming altogether a great wheel of comrades. The recent adventure had approached us to the danger and death, and left us positive balance, a healthy camaraderie that reminded me the days of the Hitlerjugend. Yes. I even could assure you, Nifetero, that in those moments, we felt a carefree happiness. It was getting dark when they arrived, the Gurkha and the Loper sent by von Grossen, and the 2 lepers that we left in Yushu, and the 5 carriers with the yaks, the Zes, and the terrible Degas. I think that I never felt so happy in my life as in that occasion, at recovering the XXX. The arrival was very celebrated by officers SS, because, in addition to the victuals, in the yaks were other 50 loaders of Smiser, and bullets of Lucia, just to replace the ammunition spent against the Duskers. The 2 monks Kalikas brought fresh news about the attack, collected in the Path Chanlam. The whole region of the Tibet would be, apparently, shot for the event. Through the path, troops of an entitled Prince of Kuknor had intercepted them, but, after the received explanations, they allowed them to leave without problems. Such incident was consequence of the civil war. In some moment of its history, the country of the Tibet reached to Lake Kuknor. Later, the Chinese formed the province of that name, and made retrieve the frontier of the Tibet, more to the south of the river Yangtze. And at last, after the incorporation of other small states, principalities, or Tibetan feuds, constituted the great province of Qinghai. At the beginning of the war, between Japan and China, and due to the absence of the central power for the occupation of the capital of the Celestial Empire, the Tibetans saw the opportunity to recover their ancient seigneuries, and the independence of China, and join to the Tibet again. In that particular case, the researcher Prince of Kuknor was a fervorous Buddhist of the Tibetan tribe Lupan, whose members formed part of the Lamastic aristocracy. Their devotion and respect for the Dalai Lama had no limits, and the aggression to the Duskers had affected him profoundly. For such reason, he sent many groups of armed men to the quest for the attackers. "We are," said the lepers, "servants of a rich merchant of Bhutan, who are going to Xining, to exchange his commodity." They were traveling with the consent of the Dharmaraja, for whom they had to comply with some assignments. And they showed to the Tibetan soldiers a letter of the Dharmaraja, in which appeared the list of objects to be acquired. That was enough. The lepers gave them a bottle of hard liquor of Bhutanese, and the soldiers gave abundant information. They had to be careful during the journey, because a group of bandits strongly armed that operated in the region. They attacked recently and destroyed a village of Pacific and Saint Lamas, for what was seen clearly that it was not about Tibetans, neither religious men, but unwanted strangers. Unless that they were members of the clandestine sect Kalika, who hated the Buddhist or Hindu lambs in general. But they would have never dared to that level. The survivors' Duskers affirmed to have been attacked by the Dheras, but the soldiers were not such credulous, and they suspected that the demons would be in reality Occidental bandits, helped by Chinese bullies. If they were right, the evildoers would try to go back to China, by the undefined frontier of the East, which they'd proposed to watch thenceforth. So, they were searching us, and as von Grossen predicted rightly, we could not be outside for a long time. The BELICENA monks had other news. Their contacts with members of the caller circle permitted them to know that a profound underground movement of sympathy for us was articulating in all the spiritual Tibet. To many admired a lot such group of initiates, who killed the disciples of the Lord of Shambhala, without mercy. It'd be very difficult to return to Bhutan, by the same way, but, our Tibetan allies, guaranteed us a secure escape through China, until the Japanese lines. Japan, in that period, was in excellent relations with Germany, and in the German consulate of Shanghai, a delegation of the Secret Service SS, worked actively. If we arrived there, we could embark ourselves without inconvenience. The BELICENA community of Xining would help us in that enterprise. But, it was still premature to talk about the exit of the Tibet. We had to find Schaefer before and neutralize his plans. Are we in conditions to leave at dawn, von Subemann? Karl von Grossen asked courteously. Leg, Mainstanddartenführer. I replied with security. We left already and, at dawn, lifted the tents and prepared low leave. Karl von Grossen was waiting for me to indicate him the course clearly, but, the only thing that we could do would be to accompany the dogs Davis. I made him understand it, and, I situated myself in front of the column, taking the leashes of the Degus, with both hands. From the infinite spirit, beyond the Kla and Epla, descended the order Follow Ernst Schaefer, in the language of the Yantras Vedi, and, it penetrated in the universe of the created forms, it crossed the XXX, and was implanted in the anime body of the dogs Davis. And the incredible animals, as if they would be really sniffing a physical trace, went rigid, and stretched their heads upwards, and then, they left as arrows towards the north. We traveled many days in that manner, always escorting the dogs Davis, and they following the invisible traces of the German expedition. At the beginning von Grossen didn't express any objection, but then, he started to get unquiet, to distrust, and to insinuate openly the possibility that the dogs Davis would have lost. In honor to the truth, I must say that, there were none reasons to doubt, because, the erratic march of the Degus, that either, they went towards the north, or the east, either they returned to the south, or moved to west, had him completely disoriented. His compass and maps were absolutely useless, he said me dramatically one day. We're lost in the heart of the Tibet, in a place completely unknown for the civilization. Perhaps, in a place that is not from this world. It was not that the rational von Grossen would have turned superstitious all of a sudden. It was that the dogs Davis guided us through a route that really seemed out from this world. In that moment, we were in an enormous valley, adorned with regular vegetation, and gifted with spring weather. All was tranquil and perfect there, but that place could not exist where it was. I saw a small bird alighting on a tree, I saw a bush with yellow flowers, and a speedy hare, and I comprehended that the circumstance had none explanation. Only in that moment, I felt worried and gave the reason to the claims of von Grossen. Where the hell are we? I thought, while I was stopping the Degus, with a mental order. Karl von Grossen was contemplating me irked. You've understood the problem at last. Since a long time ago, I have warning you that something is wrong, but you do not listen to me. You don't hear anyone. You just heed your damn dogs. I do not deny you that, in all these, there are supernatural facts, facts that I may not be capable to comprehend. I accept it, and I try to change things. I know that the dogs will guide us, through strange ways, a logic, to reach who are traveling through a magic path too. I know it, and I don't try to understand who you do it. You're here for that, but listen to me well, von Subemann. It is possible that, in this or another world, the dogs could be disoriented, strayed, or have lost the trace of Schaefer, or be following a false one. Could it be, perhaps, other magicians, enemies, interfering their route? Absolutely no. I said him, but now was he who was not listening. We have been marching since 1 week ago, supposedly towards the Lake Kuknor, it means, to the northeast. Do you know in what region we should be? Yes, I accepted reluctant. In Qinghai. This valley. No, von Superman. You know perfectly that a valley like this does not exist in Qinghai. You're an Ostenführer, if I remember well. I read it in your file. It means that you know the geography of Asia very well. We should be in Qinghai, and sometimes it seemed that we were there, but definitely this is not Qinghai. We don't even know if it is the Tibet. Karl von Grossen laughed hysterically and continued. I decided to wait him to get calm. I looked at the compass. Thither is the east, whence we came. Do you remember the great lake that we saw yesterday with the binoculars, and that we agreed in that it could not be any other than the Kuknor? Well, the eastern shore of that lake guides to the valley of Qinghai, between the Mount Nanna at the north, and the mountain range Kunlun at the south. Do you know the distance between the lake and the Mount Kunlun? You can consult the map if you want. Considering that the mountain range Kunlun is extended parallel from east to west, I think that there are some 30 kilometers between the lake and its extreme oriental, the Chainan Marchin, I said by road, and between the east shore and the occidental extreme of the Kunlun, the Chainelton Tag, for example, there are instead some 1,000 kilometers. That is. He confirmed triumphal. Now, look at the south with the binoculars. Do you recognize these mounts, at no more than 15 kilometers? These are the Elton Tag. I exclaimed dumbfounded, in the western extreme of the mountain range Kunlun. And what do you think, von Superman, that since yesterday till today we could travel 1,000 kilometers? No. Now, you're being reasonable. He approved. I'll tell you how much we traveled, because I have effectuated a precise calculation. Just 25 kilometers. Do you understand? We have joined in just 25 kilometers, two places that are normally separated by 1,000 kilometers. What happened with the normal distance? It was shortened. Take conscious, von Superman. In the planet where we were born and studied, the Lake Kuknor is not at 25 kilometers, but at 1,000 kilometers from the Mount Selton Tag. This places the Tibet and China at the same time. Before such tangible reality, to be in front of the Mount Selton Tag, in the west of the mountain range Kunlun, it was unexpectedly clarified the meaning of the co-dynamite Western operation, that we understood as Operation Old West. Resourcefully, they have cut the word China outing to from the German voice old. But then, almost at the end of the adventure, the real sense was comprehended. The disastrous mission was really called Operation Elton Tag. I foolishly thought in this, while von Grossen insisted to set forth the necessity to check the strategy at the Operation First Key. He, who 1 week before obeyed me to employ the faculty of the scrotal aim, and throw the dogs Davis, behind the traces of Schaefer, affirmed now the necessity to check the own strategy. Watkins in. We started to talk far from the rest of the caravan, but the three officers SS came getting closer in silence, and now we were surrounded by them. Karl von Grossen sighed and he put a hand upon my shoulder fatherly. Look at the Tibetans, he indicated. Don't you find their expression offbeat? Indeed, von Grossen was not exaggerating here. The attitude of the Kalika monks was undoubtedly out of the ordinary. The natural and imperturbable tranquility had disappeared, and they seemed nervous and alarmed. Those warriors, who didn't hesitate before an enemy 100 times superior, were turning untiringly to watch at all directions, as if they would be waiting that the own Satan was going to burst at their backs. I didn't warn it before, because the dogs attracted all my attention, as von Grossen reproached me. I cursed it for myself and just whispered. It is curious. Curious. It's incredible. You were just warning it, but, since 1 day ago that they have been behaving in that way. I tried to find out what happened to them, and you have answered me with evasiveness, but you, to whom they respect, will not refuse to respond. I want to know what happens, von Superman continued. Before taking this journey of madness, I want to know what happens if we are lost, or in another world, or what happens to the Tibetans. I want to know it all. I'll not oppose to retake the march guided by the docs, but I believe necessary for you to meditate, and be aware of what happens around you. Evidently, my abstraction of the last days had affected him. But, you're wrong, von Grossen. If I wanted to find Ernst Schaefer, I pretended that the dogs Davis obey the correct order. The worst mistake that I could commit would be to be aware of what happened around me, and reflect. Precisely, the secret to control the dogs consisted in the capacity to situate oneself, far from all around, out from the space and time, beyond the Kla and Ekla. And above all, it was required to not think, not perceive, not reflect. Without warning it, the Standartenführer wanted to force me to fall in Maya, the illusion of the material forms that filled our surroundings, which composed the context of the great deceit. But, he was a very erudite man, who spoke about the real, fluently, and demonstrated to comprehend the terms of the spirit, the eternity, the infinite, the absolute freedom. How could I explain him then, what I knew? I opted to keep quiet. I didn't want to hurt him, because I could only attribute his forgetfulness of the basic principles of the Hyperborean wisdom to an intense sensation of terror. I'll interrogate the Gurkha, I proposed. I think that he is who has more affinity with us. Karl von Grossen was agreed, and we called him immediately. As he supposed, Bangai not refused to respond me. We are, he said, in the Valley of the Immortal Demons. Very near from here must be the door of Changshambala. You have not developed the psychic vision, and for that reason you don't see the sanctuary of the Queen Mother of the West. But, since 1 day ago, we are getting near to it, and the Kalikas perceive it clearer each moment. The Gurkha signalized the Mount Kunlun. For moments he spoke in Bodskod, and for a moment in English and German, what demonstrated his perturbation. Yes, there is the sanctuary of Hsiwangmu, the enemy of the Klua. He affirmed with shudder. She is who others call Dolma, Terra, Kuan Yin, and also Bina, the mother of the mortal earthen men. It is a tradition that to this valley of the immortals only enter those who she loves, and want to preserve, to worship Brahma, the creator, and serve the king of the world. It means, only those who hate Kla enter, those who refuse the eternal marriage with the absolute Shathai, the non-men, the non-virile. A Kalika has never put the feet in this path, contrary to the Tao, the path and the end at the beginning. Never a husband of Kla has treaded so wretched path, opposed to the Onvrun. You and the Dox Davis have guided us to hell, to protagonize, in physical body, the greatest challenge of this life. She will try to convert us, in animals, but we'll fight here if it is necessary. For Shiva, and for you, son of Shiva, and for your Führer, the Lord of the Absolute Will. But, above all, we will fight because we know that you, who have guided us to the war against the Sheras, will not abandon us in hell. You're a warrior of heaven and hell, a man of honor, and you'll know how to take us out from here. Such conviction, it is obvious to clarify, impressed me profoundly. Are we in hell? We have reached so far. Karl von Grossen commented with irony. It is possible then, that the son of the beach of Schaefer be near, because this is the most appropriate place for him. Of course, no one imagined that the joke of von Grossen corresponded to the strictest reality. The traitor and the German expedition were near, very near from there. However, the journey was not retaken until the next morning, by my initiative. I wanted that all could rest, and I searched trivial regrets to justify the stop. I explained to the not hasty Standartenführer that I needed to mediate about what was seen and heard, and check the orders of the dogs Davis. And I think that for first time in that journey, from Bhutan, everyone were internally grateful to have lost a day in the threshold of the Valley of the Immortal Demons. The camaraderie is not a quantifiable connection, a measurable relation, a reason amongst partners. It is not a mere affective nexus, as the friendship, but a spiritual coincidence, the identity of ideals that are realized simultaneously. The camaraderie is determined by absolute instance, the time and space of the fact, but it lacks of extensive temporal dimension. It means, the camaraderie does not admit category of duration, it is unconceivable a permanent comrade, as a friend. The camaraderie produces comrades of the fact, of the coincidence circumstance, implies the encounter of too many, in a same instant, with a common ideal that is fulfilled. The friendship, on the contrary, is temporally extensive, and spatially limited. It consists in a thick sentimental nexus, almost measurable, that joins the people with independence of the fact in which they participate. The friendship is independent of every ethic moral, because it emerges from the heart, as every affective relation. In the camaraderie, on the contrary, is always present the honor. It is demanded to not question the moral behavior of a friend. It is a duty, whereas, to observe the ethic attitude of a comrade. The homeland could be betrayed, with the help of a friend. But, it is only possible to die for the homeland, with the help of a comrade. From the opposition between the friendship, affective, and the camaraderie, spiritual, emerges with clarity why that traitor achieves to extend his betrayal in time, forever, analogously to the friendship, and why the hero must demonstrate his courage in the act of an instant in which the honor, and the ethic of the humility, are based to forget later. That instant of the hero, which carries implicit all the courage in the act of its occurrence, is the absolute instance of the comrades, the perfect coincidence of those, who are going to fight in favor of the same ideal. Because, and the clarification is evident, the instant of the hero is time of kshatrios, of warriors, that is to say, of comrades. In the trench, a chief and 10 soldiers are sheltered. A lethal grenade falls inside all of a sudden. A soldier throws himself upon it, and absorbs the explosion with his body. He has died but he saved all the others. He is a hero. It must be warned, in this example, that the hero, in his absolute instance, is the charismatic leader of the group. Let's see well. It treats about a professional army. There are hierarchies and military grades, superiors and subordinate, chiefs and soldiers. However, that exterior organization, that superficial order, it doesn't matter before the imponderable death. The inner forces of the human order are impotent to oppose the dissolvent potency of the death. When the grenade falls, in the trench, only the deathened men, who are going to die rail. In that instant of terror, there are no superiors or subordinates, chief and soldiers, but men who are going to die. But, someone decides to oppose his body to the death. He thinks it, an instant and decides it. He will stop the death, he will not let it pass beyond himself. It is not a suicide. It is an act of giving his own life in favor of an ideal. I die for their triumph. First act. A grenade falls in the trench, and, the grenade is the death. Before her, a group of men will die. Second act. A man rises from his own humanity, and decides to die justly, and save the others, for their triumph. And who acts thus, is not a chief nor a soldier, because the courage doesn't require hierarchies, but the hero. Here is the miracle. A soldier ceases from the absolute instance, and stops being soldier to become a hero. And there are no chiefs nor soldiers anymore, not even men, who are going to die, but the hero and his comrades. His partners, chief and soldiers, are the comrades who coincide with him in the act of the death. But, above all the acts, is the objective of the war, the ideal of the warrior, the homeland, or perhaps a national goal. The realization of the ideal needs, then, the fact of the life. The death, in that case, is the enemy. Hence that, to stop the death, avoid to take the life of those who fights for the ideal, be an act of service for the ideal, out from every regulation. If that would not be thus, the act of the hero would be a mere suicide, and the survivors would save a life without sense. But, the life rescued from the death has a sense. The triumph of the ideal. The hero throws himself over the grenade, but says very clear to all, I die for your triumph, that is to say, triumph. He don't say, I give you my life. And how he says it? Charismatically. Everyone hears it, with the blood. For such reason, they don't feel that they owe their lives to the hero, but that they must triumph, defeat the enemy, comply with his command. So, there is an order. Yes, but not in the artificial order of the military organization, but the formality of the mystic. In the instant of the fearlessness, the hero is the charismatic leader of his comrades, and his last thought is an order that all will obey. An order given out from the military hierarchy, disengaged from the chain of the leadership, but gifted with major force than any exterior disposition, because it has been emitted inside of each one, simultaneously with the explosion of the death. Under the mystical form of the ideal, the comrades have received, in a unique instant, the order of the charismatical leader, which is such because in that absolute instance he surpasses everyone with the heroic courage of his act. Returning to the previous comparison, now, it can be appreciated better the difference between the friendship and the camaraderie. Friends can give us too much, even all what they have. Perhaps, they can't even give their lives for us. But, only the comrades will give us something greater than our own lives. This is the ideal. Only the hero, or a comrade, will believe in us, as heroes of comrades, and will command us to follow the ideal, will signalize us the ideal, will reveal us the ideal, will approach us to the ideal. To be a friend, is to be linked to a foreign heart. To be a comrade, is to be committed with an ideal. It means to assume, in the right moment, the absolute instant of the hero. If it would be necessary, to lead the comrades charismatically, to order the march towards the ideal. Germany, you shall stand radiant, / even though we shall fall, / yes, our flag is greater than death. But, the heroes don't have to die always. A hero is also who leads his comrades in the absolute instant, and guides them directly to victory. And all follows him, persuaded, rapt, gained, because they know charismatically, with the blood, that he has seen the ideal, and is proposed to realize it. A universal principle of the Hyperborean wisdom is fulfilled. One guides the comrades, and the ideal is realized. In our squadron, prevailed the military order. There was a scale of commands that started with von Grossen, continued with me, then with Hans, and Klester, and concluded with Heinz. The Kalika warriors had their hierarchy too, and their chiefs received our directives. However, above the military organization, we were all united by the common ideal of the spirit, of the National Socialism, of the Führer. In a given instant, we were all comrades, and then, the absolute instance of the hero could occur. During the journey, and the attack to the Duskers, the squadron worked as a military body, and the hierarchies and grades were respected. Nevertheless, when the searched objective became incorporeal, and the death and madness started to hang around us, and was evident at last that neither von Grossen, nor anyone, except me, could take them out from such sinister valley of the immortal demons. The hierarchical order was discomposed and the charismatic coincidence was produced. Me and the comrades. All believed in me, expected from me, trusted in me. The circumstance, it is clear, required a hero and a leader. I was conscious of it, and I was not disposed to lose the opportunity. For this reason, I wanted them to rest before retaking the quest for Ernst Schaefer. There would be no more time later. Because, in that absolute instant, followed without hesitate by my comrades, and following the path of Kler and Epler, we would throw ourselves to the throat of the enemy. We would die, or triumph, but, whatever be the case, our death or triumph, would mean for the comrades of Germany the order to fulfill the ideal, the victory of the Führer. will die for their triumph. I thought, trembling with heroic resoluteness. The ideal? As Baldrov von Schirach would say, the ideal consisted in our flag.